Do your emotions hijack you? If so, stay tuned because I'm going to give you 9 tips for helping you to manage that. When I was younger, my emotions used to get in the way all the time. For example, I used to drive down the street and somebody would cut me off and I would flip my lid. I would just absolutely go crazy until one day I realized I was like, they can't hear me. The only person who's getting aggravated is me. I'm the only one who's like in a tizzy, and that kind of brought me down. But the thing that's important to understand and to realize is that emotions aren't bad; they just are, right? It's just when they start to run away from you is really when we need to start paying attention. So, for example, does this sound familiar? Maybe you tend to take things personally, or when something happens on the way to work, or you have a negative interaction with someone, it kind of bleeds into the rest of your day. Or, I don't know, maybe, Thanksgiving dinner's coming up, and Uncle Joe's coming, and he has a tendency to push your buttons, and you already start to get aggravated at the thought that he's going to be there. So, again, it's not about emotions being bad, it's just recognizing where you are, recognizing the emotions that you're experiencing, and looking for ways to mitigate the impact that the emotions have on you. So, these are some of the things that you can do to safeguard your peace of mind. First, it's important to understand that allowing your emotions to get the best of you is a learned behavior. It's something that I know I learned from watching the world around me, specifically the whole driving thing. I learned that from my parents. I was in the car with them and they would lose it when, people weren't driving the way they expected them to. And that's something that I learned. Then it's important to dig into why you're getting triggered. And that's really the key piece, is that it's not just about the surface stuff. You really have to try to understand, what is it in this situation that is getting you triggered? Maybe there's something that happened in your past that needs resolution. Whatever it is, take a look at it, explore it, and then you can move on and let it go. It's also important to recognize, what is it in the other person that is triggering you, because maybe it's something that you do that you recognize in the other person, which you don't necessarily appreciate in yourself, and that's the thing that gets you going. And then understand that when you lose your stuff, you give away your power. If all somebody has to do is say something or do something to get you to fly off the handle, how much control over yourself do you really have? So it's important to take your buttons off the table, right? You know what your triggers are and work on removing them so people can't take advantage of you in a weak position, or can't take advantage of pushing your buttons so that they get the attention that they're really looking for. It's also not so easy to stand firm in your convictions when you're kind of playing loosey-goosey with your values or with your convictions. When you believe in something and when you stand for something, it's easy to kind of not let things affect you. But when you're trying to figure it out, it is a bit more difficult to try to remain in control of your emotions. One of my favorites: don't think things personally. People do for themselves. They don't necessarily do to antagonize you, to push your buttons, to get a rise out of you. They just going about their merry way doing the thing that they need to do for their own life, and you happen to be maybe in the vicinity or in the sphere of influence or whatever the case may be. But don't take it as a personal affront. Don't take it as, oh, they're doing this something specifically for me. I remember my niece saying, well, I know he's doing this just to get me aggravated. And it's like, people have better things to do than spend their time trying to get you aggravated. So remember not to take things personally. And it's also important to establish boundaries with people, right? So it's important for people to know where the line is. So have you defined what that line is for people? Because if they don't know how far they can go, chances are they're going to cross the line, even without knowing that they've actually crossed the line. So, for your own peace of mind, one of the best things you can do is set those boundaries. And it's not an act of being mean, it's an act of self preservation. It's also a way to show people, right, and to let them know this is how far I'm willing to go. But if you cross that line, then we're going to have a problem. And often when you tell people what the line, where the line is, what the line is, and where it is, they don't tend to cross it. They may inadvertently because they're used to you putting boundaries that you haven't necessarily put up before, but they're not going to deliberately, for the most part. It does happen. But most people, when you set those boundaries, they work to respect the boundaries that you've set. And the last thing is, don't try to please everyone. How often have you taken on a project or tried to do something to please someone else and ended up getting frustrated in the process because it wasn't really what you wanted to do, and you get aggravated because you know you should have said no and you said yes? When we don't try to please everyone, that's another way that we can safeguard our own peace of mind. So these were I can't count, 9 different things that you can do in order to safeguard your peace of mind. I hope you found it helpful, and I encourage you to stay tuned, come back, and I'll talk to you soon.